I think this is a really important and exciting time for Britain and for British politics. After 10 years in government, the Labour Party is seeking, under new leadership, to set out and deliver a renewed vision for the future of the country, a vision that builds on the economic, social and political changes that have happened since 1997. And it's my belief that the battle of ideas over the next couple of years is going to determine the future of the country over the next 10, 20 or 30 years. I think the stakes are very high indeed. And I would describe them as follows. The question that we're going to have to address, the question that will be resolved by this battle of ideas. Will progressive forces establish a new centre of gravity in politics in Britain? Or will the 20th century pattern of conservative dominance, conservative with a small c and conservative with a large c, the conservative dominance that was so marked in the 20th century and only interrupted by bursts of radicalism, continue to be the norm for the 21st century. And today I want to address the relevance of foreign policy to the drive to build a better Britain, the relevance of the priorities for foreign engagement, and the powers available to us to advance our goals. And in that context, I just want to pick up what Robin and Rickon have both said. I think it is symbolic that I should be giving my first speech as Foreign Secretary to and with organisations that symbolise the best of the old and the best of the new in foreign policy, the insight, knowledge and expertise of Chatham House and the capacity for engagement with people on a global scale offered by and demonstrated by Avaaz. Now, every Foreign Secretary who I've ever read about quotes Lord Palmerston, who famously said that we, Britain, have no permanent allies and no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. But although every Foreign Secretary quotes that famous phrase, I want to ask, is it true? Today, actually, we do have permanent alliances. The US is the single most important bilateral relationship. We are members, committed members of the European Union. We are proud of our role on the Security Council of the UN, proud of the Commonwealth too. These alliances are founded on shared values and embedded in shared institutions. And the evolution in foreign policy is driven, in my view, by changing circumstances and the changing distribution of power, not by changes in values and alliances. This evolution depends on new thinking and on new solutions. And this is the argument that I want to put to you today. First, that Britain needs to respond to the real insecurities and opportunities that exist in the world, not by retreating from international engagement, but by using our strengths so that we are a force for good for Britain by being a force for good in the world. The old distinction between foreign policy that affected foreigners and home policy that affected our own citizens has collapsed. So foreign policy is about values, but it's also about interests. It's about values and interests together. Second, I think Britain brings to this task real strengths. A new Prime Minister with a very clear view of how the national interest is best served by international engagement, an economy that is increasingly the banker to the world, culture that is globally admired, ditto military forces, and alliances that stretch north, east, south, and west. Third, foreign policy goals and methods must adapt to a series of shifts in the distribution of power. A world where the security threat is not just from excessive state power, but increasingly from terrorism and conflict within failed states. A world where economic prosperity depends on new bargains between industrialized and developing countries. A world where social change is fostered not just through government-to-government relationships, but between businesses, NGOs, and faith groups. In this context, fourthly, we need to think how we can deploy Britain's assets, both the soft power of ideas and influence and the hard power, the harder power of our economic and military incentives and interventions to promote the international security and prosperity on which we all depend. Fifth and finally, I want to argue that this new diplomacy can begin in the Foreign Office, but it needs to draw on the widest base of ideas. And I want to end tonight by setting out the questions that I am asking in the Foreign Office, that I'm asking in staff meetings and in seminars. And I want us to address those questions together in the seminar rooms of Chatham House, but also among the million members of Avaaz.